Now, the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California presents Suspense. Tonight, in response to requests from many thousands of listeners, Roma Wines bring you the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer star, Miss Agnes Moorehead, in Sorry, Wrong Number, a suspense play produced, edited, and directed for Roma Wines by William Spear. Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills, is presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those excellent California wines that can add so much pleasantness to the way you live, to your happiness in entertaining guests, to your enjoyment of everyday meals. Before we bring you Agnes Moorehead and our suspense play, here's a message from Roma Wines. Today, big transports were warped into piers on both sides of the continent. Thousands of Americans came home for good. If you are waiting for someone to come running up your steps, you must have filled your pantry with good things to enjoy. One of the good things to enjoy is Roma California Sherry, as first called at dinner or later in the evening. In the words of famed hostess Elsa Maxwell, there is nothing friendlier, nothing more heartwarming than delicious Roma Sherry, a good and happy wine, gold and amber with a rich nut-like taste. Serve cool. Roma Sherry, like all famous Roma wines, is made from carefully selected grapes from California's choicest vineyards. Grapes gathered at the peak of their flavored goodness when every grape is hanging firm and full on the vine, quickly but gently pressed, then by a process as slow as time, brought to delicious liquid perfection and bottled in Roma's famed wineries. Always unvaryingly good, yet Roma wines cost only pennies a glass. Remember, because of uniformly fine quality at reasonable cost, more Americans enjoy Roma than any other wine. R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Yes, right now a glassful would be very pleasant as Roma Wines bring you a remarkable tale of suspense. And with Sorry, Wrong Number, Lucille Fletcher's incomparable study in terror, and with the performance of Miss Agnes Moorehead, Roma Wines hope indeed to keep you in suspense.
Oh, dear.
Your call, please.
Operator, I've been dialing Murray Hill 40098 now for the last 3/4 of an hour, and the line is always busy. I don't see how it could be busy that long. Will you try it for me, please?
I will be glad to try that number for you. One moment, please.
I don't see how it could be busy all this time. It's my husband's office. He's working late tonight, and I'm all alone here in the house. My health is very poor, and I've been feeling so nervous all day.
Ringing Murray Hill 40098.
Hello?
Hello? Hello, is Mr. Stevenson there?
Hello?
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 Hello, George? Yes, sir. This is George speaking.
Hello? Who's this?
Hello,
What number am
George.
I calling, please?
I'm here with our client. Oh, good. Is everything okay? Is the coast clear for tonight? Yes, George. He says the coast is clear for tonight. Okay. Where are you now? In a phone booth. Don't worry. Everything's okay. Very well. You know the address? I know. At 11 o'clock, the private patrolman goes around to the bar on 2nd Avenue for a beer. That's right. 11 o'clock. Okay. Be sure that all the lights downstairs are out. There should be only one light visible from the street. Okay. What's that? Just a minute, George. Oh, our client tells me that at 11:15 a train crosses the bridge. It makes a noise in case her window is open and she should scream.
Hello, what number is this, please?
Okay, I understand.
But
That's 11:15, the train.
Yes. Do you remember everything else, George?
Yes. I'll make it quick, as little blood as possible, because our client does not wish to make her suffer long.
That's right. You'll use a knife?
Yes, a knife will be okay. Then afterwards, I remove the rings and bracelets and the jewelry in the bureau drawer, because our client wishes it to look like simple robbery. Don't worry. Everything's okay. I never...
Oh, how awful. How unspeakably awful. I never...
Your call, please.
Operator, I've just been cut off.
I'm sorry. What number were you calling?
Why, it was supposed to be Murray Hill 40098, but it wasn't. Some wires must have got crossed. I was cut into the wrong number, and I've just heard the most dreadful thing, something about a murder. And, well, operator, you'll simply have to retrace that call at once.
I beg your pardon. I don't quite... May I help you?
Well, I know it was a wrong number, and I had no business listening, but these two men, they were cold-blooded fiends, and they were going to murder somebody, some poor innocent woman who was all alone in a house near a bridge, and we've got to stop them. We just got to.
What number are you calling,
Well, that
please?
doesn't matter. This was a wrong number, and you dialed it for me, and we've got to find out what it was immediately.
What number did you call?
Oh, why are you so stupid? What time is it? Do you mean to tell me you can't find out what that number was just now?
I'll connect you with the chief operator.
Oh, I think it's perfectly shameful. Now, look, it was obviously a case of some little slip of the finger. I told you to try Murray Hill 40098 for me, and you dialed it, but your finger must have slipped, and I was connected with some other number, and I could hear them, but they couldn't hear me. Now, I simply fail to see why you couldn't make that same mistake again on purpose, why you couldn't try to dial Murray Hill 40098 in the same sort of careless way.
Murray Hill 40098. I will try to get it for you.
Oh, thank you. Oh.
I am sorry. Murray Hill 40098 is busy. I will call you. Operator. Your call, please.
You didn't try to get that wrong number at all. I asked you explicitly, and all you did was dial correctly.
I am sorry. What number are you calling?
Well, can't you for once forget what number I'm calling and do something for me? Now, I want to trace that call. It's my civic duty, and it's your civic duty to trace that call and apprehend those dangerous killers. And if you won't...
I will connect you with the chief operator.
Oh, please. Talk. If anyone needs to...
This is the chief operator.
Oh, Chief Operator, I want you to trace a telephone call, immediately. I don't know where it came from or who was making it, but it's absolutely necessary that it be tracked down because it was about a murder that someone's planning, a terrible, cold-blooded murder of a poor innocent woman tonight at 11:15.
I see.
Well, can you trace it for me? Can you track down those men?
I'm not certain. It depends.
Depends on what?
It depends on whether the call is still going on.
Well,
if it's a live call, we can trace it on the equipment. If it's been disconnected, we can't.
Disconnected?
If the parties have stopped talking to each other.
Oh, well, but of course they must have stopped talking to each other by now. That was at least 5 minutes ago. It didn't sound like the type who would make a long call.
Well, I can try tracing it. May I have your name, please?
Mrs. Stevenson. Mrs. Albert Stevenson. But listen
And your
now...
telephone number, please.
Plaza 32098. But if you go
Why
on
do you
wasting all
want
this...
this call traced, please?
Why? Oh, no reason. I mean, I merely felt very strongly that something ought to be done about it. These men sounded like killers. They're dangerous. They're going to murder this woman at 11:15 tonight, and I thought the police ought to know.
Have you reported this to the police?
Well, no, not yet.
You want this call checked purely as a private individual?
Yes, but meanwhile...
I'm sorry, Mrs. Stevenson, but I'm afraid we couldn't make this check for you and trace the call just on your say-so as a private individual.
But I
You have to have something more official.
Oh, for heaven's sake. You mean to tell me I can't report that there's going to be a murder without getting tied up in all this red tape? Why, it's perfectly idiotic. Well, all right, I'll call the police.
Thank you. I'm sure that'll be the best way to...
Ridiculous. I never heard of this. No. Police department. We have to go.
Your call,
The
please.
police department. Get me the police department, please.
Thank you. Ringing the police department.
Oh, dear, do you have to dial? Why can't you ring them direct? Oh, this... Wait.
Police Station, Precinct 43, Sergeant Martin speaking.
Police department, this is Mrs. Stevenson. Mrs. Albert Smythe Stevenson of 53 North Sutton Place. I'm calling up to report a murder. I mean, the murder hasn't been committed yet, but I just overheard plans for it over the telephone, over a wrong number that the operator gave me. And I've been trying to trace down the call myself, but everybody is so stupid, and I guess in the end you're the only people who could do anything.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it was a perfectly definite murder. I heard their plans distinctly. Two men were talking, and they were going to murder some woman at 11:15 tonight. She lived in a house near a bridge. Are you listening to me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And there was a private patrolman on the street. He was going to go around for a beer on 2nd Avenue. And there was some third man, a client, who was paying to have this poor woman murdered. They were going to take her rings and bracelets and use a knife. Well, it's unnerved me dreadfully. And I'm not well. I'm very nervous.
I see. And when was all this, ma'am?
Well, about 8 minutes ago. Then you can do something. You do understand.
What is your name, ma'am?
Mrs. Stevenson, Mrs. Albert Stevenson.
And your address?
5353 North Sutton Place. That's near a bridge. The Queensboro Bridge, you know, and we have a private patrolman on our street, and 2nd Avenue is the next street,
what was the number you were calling, please?
Murray Hill 40098. But that wasn't the number I overheard. I mean, Murray Hill 40098 is my husband's office.
Well,
he's working late tonight, and I was trying to reach him to ask him to come home. I'm an invalid, you know, and it's the maid's night off, and I hate to be alone, even though he says I'm perfectly safe as long as I have the telephone right beside my bed.
Well, we'll look into it, Mrs. Stevenson, and see if we can check it with the telephone company.
But the telephone company said they couldn't check the call if the parties had stopped talking. I've already taken care of that.
Oh, you have?
Yes, I have. And personally, I feel you ought to do something far more immediate and drastic than just check the call.
Well, you
what
see...
good is checking the call if they stop talking? By the time you track it down, they'll already have committed the murder.
Well, we'll take care of it now. Don't you worry.
I'd say the whole thing calls for a search, a complete and thorough search of the whole city.
Yes, but...
I'm buried near the bridge, and I'm not far from 2nd Avenue, and I know I'd feel a whole lot better if you sent around a radio car to this neighborhood at once.
And what makes you think the murder is going to be committed in your neighborhood, ma'am?
Well, I don't know. Only the coincidence is so horrible. 2nd Avenue, the patrolman, the bridge.
Look, you see, 2nd Avenue is a very long street, ma'am.
Well, I know
You know
that.
how many bridges there are in the city of New York alone?
Yes.
Not to mention Brooklyn, Staten Island, Queens, and the Bronx.
Well,
and how do you know that there isn't some little house on Staten Island, on some little 2nd Avenue you never heard about?
Well,
How do you know they were even talking about New York at all?
But I heard the call on the New York dialing system.
Well, maybe it was a long-distance call you overheard.
Oh,
telephone's a funny thing.
But I did...
Now, look, lady, look. Why don't you look at it this way? Now, supposing you hadn't broken in on that telephone call. Suppose you got your husband the way you always do. Now, you wouldn't be so upset, would you?
Well, No, I suppose not. Only it sounded so inhuman, so cold-blooded.
A lot of murders are plotted in this city every day, ma'am, and we manage to prevent almost all of them. But a clue of this kind is so vague, ma'am. Well, it ain't much more use to us than no clue at all.
But surely you can understand.
Unless, of course, you have some reason for thinking this call was a phony, and that someone may be planning to murder you.
Me? Oh, no, I hardly think so. I mean, why should anybody?
Well,
I'm alone all day and night. I see nobody except my maid, Eloise. She's a big girl. She weighs 200 pounds. She's too lazy to bring up my breakfast tray. And the only other person is my husband, Albert. He's crazy about me. He just adores me.
Yes,
he waits on me hand and foot. He's scarcely left my side since I took sick 12 years ago.
Well, then there's nothing for you to worry about, is there, huh? Now, if you'll just leave the rest to us, we'll take care of it.
But what will you do? It's so late. It's nearly 11 now.
We'll take care of it.
Will you broadcast it all over the city and send out squads and warn your radio cars to watch out, especially in suspicious neighborhoods like mine?
Lady, I said we would take care of it. Now, just now, I've got a couple of other matters here on my desk that require immediate attention. Good night, ma'am, and thank you.
Oh, you idiot. Oh, now, why did I hang up the phone like that? Now he'll think I am a fool. Oh, why doesn't Albert come home? Why doesn't he? Why doesn't she?
Your call, please.
Operator, for heaven's sake, will you ring that Murray Hill 40098 number again? I can't think what's keeping him so long.
I will try it for you.
Well, try